I'm Darren. Welcome to thecampingplace.com. Today we're in Boone, North Carolina. Today I'm going to show you the proper way to set up a tent. I'm sure most of you have set up a tent before, so it may sound remedial or too basic, but I'm not going to assume that everybody watching this video has set up a tent before. We do have a lot of new campers who are just getting into it or want to get into it, so I'm going to start with the basics, setting up a tent. And if you have set up a tent and done a lot of camping, I hope to share maybe some tips that can even teach you something. So we can always learn something new. Okay, before you begin setting up your tent, the most important thing is to determine the location of this tent. You want to think about several things. You want to think about drainage. You want to think about if it's flat. You want to make sure it's smooth of sharp objects like rocks and sticks and pine cones. You want to make sure there's no widowmakers over you. A widowmaker is a branch in a tree above you that could fall off and break in a wind at night and kill you in your sleep. So you don't want to be under a tree that looks like it's going to drop a branch on you. Right now we're out in a nice grassy field, so it's pretty easy to find a good spot. Here's our tent for this weekend. We found a nice little flat spot on this slopey ground. I've got my son Caleb as my assistant this morning. He's agreed to help me show you this tent setup. Right now he's setting out the tarp. He's found a fairly level piece of grass. There are no sticks, no pine cones, no rocks under the tarp. So we don't have to worry about puncturing a hole in this tarp. You always want to use a tarp to keep the bottom of your tent dry so water doesn't come up through your tent, because most tent floors are not waterproof. There's another aspect of site selection I forgot to mention. Sometime you might want to think about, especially if it's in the colder weather, you may want to think about where that first morning sun is going to hit. If you're going to be in the shade for the first 6-8 hours of the day, that might not be the best selection for your tent. If you can find a nice sunny patch that the morning sun's going to warm, I think you would really enjoy that sun heating up your tent in the morning. So Caleb has spread out the tent over the tarp, and he's going to open up the poles. All poles nowadays are shock corded. They have elastic inside that keeps the poles together. Cheaper tents use fiberglass poles, which are a little heavier and more prone to breakage. This tent is using this tent is using an aluminum pole. It's lighter and stronger, and he's carefully connecting the poles together, making sure not to snap them together, as that would damage the ends. This tent pole system has a little hub in the center of it that just makes connecting the poles and setting up the tent even easier and faster. With this tent, each corner gets a pole, so it's fairly simple. He's going to connect the pole into the grommet at the corner. It's going to bend that aluminum pole up. Many tents have sleeves that you slide the poles through. More and more tents are being made with clips, as this one has. Clips tend to be a little bit lighter, definitely faster to set up, and therefore easier as well. A lot of times with pole sleeves, if you're in a hurry, you can end up jabbing a hole with the pole into the sleeve and wrecking it. The last step is putting this pole over the top. The purpose of this pole is to open up the interior of the tent a little bit by stretching out the side walls. Next, we're going to put the Rainfly on. This Rainfly can go on either direction. There's 2 doors on it. The vestibule is the same on each side, so you don't have to worry about what direction the Rainfly is pointing. It'll go on either way. Some tents have a longer vestibule over one door, or they might only have one door. So you have to know which side is facing front. This one goes on pretty easy. It's got buckles. It just clips onto the tent corner. Very easy to connect and adjust. There are also guy out points, so you can stretch out the tent fly. That allows for better ventilation because the Rainfly is not stuck to the tent. It also allows for better coverage to get the tent fly over the profile of the tent so water doesn't drip onto the tent itself. After you've got the Rainfly on, you want to adjust any tension straps that it might have. Gives the Rainfly a nice taut appearance. Now he's going to extend the vestibule. Vestibules are wonderful things that weren't common on every tent 10, 20 years ago. More and more tents now have them. They're a great place to store gear out of the weather. Gives you a little sheltered entry area into the tent. It really adds a lot of volume because you don't have to store your pack inside your tent anymore at night. This Rainfly has some tie-out points to guy out some cordage for stronger weather protection against wind and rain, so it just helps make the tent more sturdy. Another important adjustment you want to make as you're finishing up your tent setup is to walk around your tent and look at the ground tarp and see if any of it is sticking out. If it's sticking out, rain is going to run off your fly and onto the tarp and go underneath your tent. So you want to tuck that under your tent so it's not visible. That way, when rain falls, it's not going to hit the it's not going to hit the ground tarp and roll. That concludes our video on the right way to set up a tent, or at least the way I do it. If you've got any other suggestions for me, please note it in the comments below.